welcome to the second episode of the Growth Design Podcast. And this is the first of our conversation chat series. And today we are diving into a very exciting topic that just talks about cognitive biases and how it impacts the different products that we use in day-to-day life, but also vivid examples of how they're used within products so that you as a growth designer can begin to recognize them and see how they can be used within whatever sector you work in. And on today's episode, I have my co-host as ever, Emmanuel, who will be joining me.
Hi guys.
Who'll be joining me across these different conversations. And we're just going to get straight into it because there's so many fun parts to talk about. So we're going to get started with defining what cognitive bias is exactly. And I'm going to let Emmanuel take the first one. What is cognitive bias? Can you introduce this topic for us?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ini, for that intro. So for me, when we talk about cognitive biases, they are just a way of thinking, the way we reason as human beings. We have so many things that we've come across, so many informations that we've come across that influences the way we think, our decisions, right? So, for example, when you go out to buy something, when you're trying to probably buy a drink, there's something that just pops you I want to buy this drink. But these are biases that make you want to just make those decisions. So, and all these things are just subconscious, that it's not something you could just determine by yourself, and they are as a result of a lot of information that you've acquired, how you meet people, what you see. They're just informations that define some of these biases in our head. So on a product level, when you have a user come to your landing page or your product, there's some mindset, there's some information that they have, there's some things, a way of pattern of thinking. So, and they interact with your product with these biases. And there are ways that we can use these biases as product designers or as growth designers to improve or achieve our own goals. So that's kind of what I think it is.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So you can think about them as mental shortcuts when we're making decisions. Like you've said, we are a collection of our experiences, our perceptions over time. And as a designer, these cognitive biases are basically both psychology tricks or even marketing tricks that just help us influence the way people buy. But then the thing to note is that they can be very powerful when we're thinking about conversion, like you said, whether from landing pages or even within products. And you just have to continuously iterating on whatever assumptions you're making or hypotheses that you're forming as a designer. And these can increase revenue significantly for your company.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so
definitely, there are tons of companies out there that are really doing this. I will set an example of Apple, right? There are a lot of cognitive biases that they employ. Would I say employ in their product that just when you get there, apart from the designs, there are visual clips and a lot of things, that principle that they consider while designing this that makes their product really out there great. And you see a lot of people use Apple product nowadays.
Duolingo. Duolingo, exactly, right? That's a very good example, as well as you've got your companies like Miro, like Notion, and we're going to get into these different types of biases and see how they show up across different products that we're using. So let's get started. But just a fair warning before we go in, the thing to note is that these psychological tricks are very, very powerful, and as much as possible, it's our responsibility as designers to use them ethically, as before you know it can lean into very creepy tactics and just dark patterns in general. So with the first one, we're going to get started with anchoring bias. Now, this particular one is basically based on the first impression people see. So the first impression is heavily influenced by the ability to infer emotions in other factors. So when you think about how pricing can be structured, when you go to the pricing page across a website, there is a reason why you will find the simple visual cues, maybe you've got 3 boxes that display the prices, and then you've got the middle box, which is potentially the highest one, or even the midway price, and that box is slightly higher in height than the other 2 boxes on either side. Or you've got tags and badges recommended that are put into these boxes. Those are examples of anchoring bias that just lets you focus on a particular thing, right? And Emmanuel, have you got something to say about this?
Yeah, definitely. I feel just like what you said. I think it's definitely applied in so many places in the product, and one of the places that I also reckon with is the pricing one. Where you sort of see like a pricing page design, and you see the road. Let's say this my headset is sold for 299, like £299, right? And over it they just roll 199, and it's sold for 299, and they just slash one.
Flash through.
So yeah, that's the anchoring thing,
Yeah.
because they want your emotions to be attached to that particular one, that say we are saving a lot of money
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
by buying this one.
Absolutely.
So that's one of those, like how you apply these
Yeah.
biases, like, and also like what you said, Ini, you could just have like this little tag, like just a pin where you just wrote recommended, which also makes you feel like, okay, so if this is recommended, like you just want the user to actually prefer that one.
Yeah.
When you do some of these things in your design and you subject it to testing, you discover that user sort of acquaints more with those ones with those visual clues. It's because of these biases that we just talked about. Yeah, definitely, I agree with you.
Yeah, and you mentioning the price slashes. This is why Black Friday is one of my least favorite holidays of the year, because this is a very good example of dark
Yeah.
patterns that are used to. I mean, so like all year round, I saw a meme that talked about how the couch costs 699 all year round, and then on Black Friday they simply put 899 and then slash it and then say 699 is the new price.
So like now,
And you think that
yeah,
you're purchasing something that is on sale, when in actual fact it's just visual cues and anchoring bias and a bunch of other cognitive biases that are being used to trick you into thinking you're actually making a good purchase when you're just paying the original price for the product. So yeah, but then let's talk about Apple, because I mean, yeah, they are sort of marketing genius, right, when it comes to this. And when you think about like Apple iPhones, they tend to announce a new iPhone at a higher price point, and then they
yeah,
present other models to you as an affordable alternative to them,
ones,
right? And this just
yeah,
absolutely uses the anchoring bias, because it means that the first piece of information, which is the high price, becomes the anchor against which the rest of the prices become reasonable to you, right? But Apple's marketing, like, they are so incredible, because that's not the only one that they use, right? There's still something called that is the secrecy and anticipation building around every new iPhone or every new MacBook Pro or things like that. Like with the MacBook Pro, the black one that was released. Okay,
yeah.
I kicked myself for I didn't know it was coming. But when I saw it, I was like, okay, a black MacBook Pro? Are you kidding me? This is
Yeah,
after I just got in like the M2. If I just waited a little bit more, I would have the M2 and my computer would be black, right? But then all these things are just, it has become Apple's trademark to have that secrecy. It's just such a clever strategy that just makes sure that you feel like you have to wait for the good thing, right? But then it's also leveraging on something called like a curiosity gap, where you continue to wonder about what new features, what new R&D that they've discovered and things like that. Like, yeah, and I just find that these things are very useful tools in a great designer's toolkit. When you use them properly, it can increase the perceived value, which is something we were talking about in the first episode for this season, right? Like the perceived value of a product. The longer people wait, the more they might believe that it's what the anticipation that they're
the
waiting
why.
for.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and that's why Apple is like $1 billion company. They have leveraged on these
yeah,
biases and become successful. Like almost when you get to their website, the way their product listing is done, there are a lot of biases also in it. It's just like what you said, the way they are framing some of their listings. It's how Apple has carefully implemented some of these designs and applying these biases, and that's why they are successful today.
yeah.
Definitely agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think the bottom line is that good marketing messaging is not just about the needs and desires that you're solving, but it's also the needs and desires that it's creating within them, right? So yeah, Apple, big props to them basically for how much they've been able to leverage on these things. Now, the second one is negativity bias, which I feel like this one is personal to me, because that is a very key thing that I implemented in an experiment that I led in house at a previous workplace, and it just skyrocketed the amount of conversion. We use this for conversion rate optimization in particular, where it's like for something in, especially with financial goods, right? Working within the fintech industry, and particularly in the lending category, the responsible lending category, when people are able to reflect on traumatic experiences. Like people remember those things better than positive ones. And I remember there was a saying growing up, loosely translated in English now to like bad news travels faster than good news.
Fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So people will recall how you made them feel if you insulted them. They'll recall that easily compared to when you give them praises. People react strongly to negative stimuli. And when I remember when we were experimenting on what kind of headlines could boost conversion, I think for me, the hypothesis, informing the hypothesis, it was like a bold statement, because you should ideally not have statements go ahead and be like never. Like using a never statement is so strong. And I recall people having some thoughts about that. But then that was the point of the experiment as a growth designer, where it's like I wanted to take the pain points that people felt around loans in particular and see how reading those kind of sentences, that kind of headline would make them feel seen and heard. And that's exactly what this
Negativity.
exactly this bias spoke to, because ultimately we just saw how there was a serious week on week conversion rate from these experiments.
Yeah, so the negativity bias, sometimes I feel it's counterintuitive. Like when you think about things like good news, you travel faster, right? But it's just weird that people tend to relate more with bad things. It's weird, but it's a good thing for us as designers how we could use that to leverage and make conversions, increase revenues, right? But let me just cite a few examples that I have used. It goes down to the choice of pictures you use, right?
Yes.
Now, sometimes when you use a certain picture when there's a lot of joy, sometimes I've seen in some experiment that it doesn't really, when you use
a joyful image
picture,
feels.
it doesn't really convert much than when you use like a picture of someone who's trying to think. Like people relate more with bad things, and it's weird.
It's just human nature, I guess.
Exactly. And also you could apply that when you talk about testimonials, right? Yes. When you're designing testimonials, and I think that's even the concept of testimonials on landing pages, or when you want to convert a user, when you had some sort of stories, let's say something like bad story, like how a bad story turned into new one, into good one. So they relate more with that. Yeah. Instead of saying, okay, I have made 12 million naira. No, you can say how I saved, like maybe how
losing my job led to this kind of thing.
Exactly. So framing those testimonials that way has proven a long time that it actually converts more. And that's why even on Twitter, you see stories that are trending are the bad ones. You see, people react more to those things. Trending stories are most of the time bad stories. So these things are things we could apply in our designs. Absolutely. Just apply some of these principles, just like what Ini said. Even when you read some of a newsletter on the Growth Designers newsletter, you're going to see how some of these things was applied in work and everything.
Absolutely. Definitely. And you speaking of like testimonials definitely leads into the next bias, which is like a social proof bias, right? Where this one is perhaps the most well known across the marketing world, right? As human beings, we're just easily influenced by seeing the things that other people are doing, and it just reassures you, like, okay, somebody has liked this restaurant before, I'm going to go try it. Or like, oh no, this restaurant received like so many bad reviews, and especially if it's like people are like, oh yeah, if you eat there, it's gonna give you food poison. Obviously, you're not gonna want to go to that restaurant. But then when you flip it the other way around, like there are active things that you can implement on your website as a designer when you think about like if the company has won any awards or has received like special mentions. Those are things that can go onto the landing pages. When you've got like customer testimonials, you can put that onto your landing pages. Or even the one that I've absolutely enjoyed is when you're thinking about the onboarding experience, you can have those customer stories right next to the onboarding, where it's just a consistent visual reassurance as a new customer begins their journey with you. Right? Are there any other ones that you found useful within like social?
No, it's look as if you peep into my notes, because right now, I think at the moment, I'm working on a particular project that has to do with creating like an onboarding flow for a new product. Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm using is the social proof. Right. So I'm bringing in companies that uses our products, which is like social proof. When you put likes of Google,
Mhm.
eBay, Amazon, Snowflakes, a couple of companies that uses our
Yeah.
product, sort of add it to the onboarding flow
Mhm.
where you as a customer, you want to sign in and you see that, oh, this product is used by top guys in Google.
Exactly.
There's a way it feels like, okay, yes, I'm using the top and trending good
Yeah.
tools in the market.
Yeah.
So
It's
these are
yeah.
ways we can use some of these biases. And for me, this is a direct one compared to the one we discussed about the negative one, where negative one is, but this is like, yes, I want to relate more with
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it was that thing where you're saying it's almost like a badge, a trusting badge, right? Like, oh, this company is trustworthy. Because another one that I've found useful is saying things like join a community of 280,000 plus members. And we used this one when we were launching our free membership page in particular. And I remember building that, and it was more like join 150,000 community members who receive XXX about this product, and still leveraging that bias. And I mean, yeah, it's a combination of various things on that page, but that page easily went from, for context, before we launched the newly redesigned page, I think the conversion rate was about 6.2%, and then within like week on week we had gotten up to like 15% conversion, which was such a massive
Interesting.
increase, right? So it's just more
Yeah.
about like people want to feel like they're a part of something, a part of a community, a part of something that is seen and heard, right? Which now brings us to the next one, which is authority bias.
Yeah, but before you sort of go to the
All
bias,
right.
let me stick to this bias a little bit
All right.
to talk about how this also, I think this also plays in terms of engagement, right?
Yeah.
When you have a product and you want to really increase engagement, when you look at the likes of social media apps like TikTok and maybe like Twitter, like I'm a user of Twitter, and you see how social proof is used up there,
Mm.
you get to see what people are tweeting,
Mm.
and those interactions when you get to like, you retweet, you see that you can increase engagement of your users by adding some of this ability to like. You want to feel among, like,
Right.
you are seeing 10,000 people like this post. I click on it, I want to click on it, and I want to read. So
Yeah.
doing that, you see, you get your user more engaged.
Engaged.
They stick to
Yeah.
that product more. When you check an average time a user on Twitter, like, it's because of some of these things. Because while scrolling, they are seeing, oh, 10,000 people like this.
Mm.
When you don't have a lot of people on your timeline and nobody's, it's somehow dry. But they've employed
Yeah.
some of these tricks
So
or these biases
yeah.
to really improve so many of the funnels in their product. And
Yeah.
also, these are tricks that we could apply in our products,
Yeah.
to say.
So basically, like the concept of virality, basically it just keeps pulling more and more people in, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I also think, sorry,
Mhm.
I also think that these proofs, they actually intertwine, like,
Oh yeah,
they
they
all
do.
work in
Yeah,
together. That's
absolutely.
just tweeting about it.
Absolutely, because if
Yeah.
you think about how virality then lead into authority bias, like generally people tend to perceive that something has a higher value when a figure of authority is talking about it. So if you think
Yeah.
about how social media virality happens, if you've gone viral
Mm.
consistently over and over and over, people begin to refer to you and think about you as an authority figure within whatever field it is that you're going viral on, right? And
Mm.
you can
Mm.
consistently begin to use that platform of yours to then show up as an expert within something, right? So if you're trying to launch a new product into the market and you've maybe tested with, like, is why you will find, let's think about like actual physical products now, physical
Yeah.
product businesses, when you have like influencer marketing where they send those products to influencers to sort of put their stamp of approval on it to get the quotes from it. It still goes back to social proof,
Yeah.
and at the same time is like authority bias. And if you're thinking about it within your product, so I'm thinking maybe let's go with digital products, well, that is physical in a way. So if you think about this brand called Zoe, where Zoe is more within the health tech space, right? For that kind of brand, a lot of its authority will come from quotes and mentions from experts within the industry.
Yeah.
You think about scientific studies that corroborate whatever products that they're putting forward. They have to leverage things like media mentions. They have to reference things like awards that they might have received. Those kind of things. All of this is still social proof in a way and authority bias mixed together, right?
Yeah.
So is there any example you could give
Yeah.
on this one?
Yeah, just like what you said, they are intertwined.
Yeah.
Because again, we talked about the use of logos and award for social proof. At the same time, it also applies in authority bias,
Yeah.
right? Where people attach a lot of biases to what people in high authority. Let's say, for example, I use a product and I say Elon Musk uses this product, right? A lot of people we could remember in the crypto world when Elon Musk tweets about something about
People
a
rush
particular
and
coin.
buy those coins, and then yeah,
Yes,
and then you later
you
find out
understand.
everything came crashing down in a way, but still, it's that's
Yeah,
what.
you could see how one person sort of puts his own biases also many
Yeah.
thousands, millions of people, which also we could use in our product.
Yeah.
Like, you hardly see a landing page or even inside in a product where they use the logo collage. It's not just using for fun.
No.
These collage are used because of these biases,
Yeah.
so that you are looking at this product as a valuable product
Yeah.
because of the companies that are using it, or there's a particular user that uses this product that these are things that could help your product and you
Yeah.
could apply in your
Yeah.
designs using logo collage, your awards. Having some of those things gives you authority and also improves
Yeah.
conversion, improves your retention in your product
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Yep.
And all this does also just comes back to trust as a
Yeah.
currency, that it's important for designers to figure out how to leverage that trust. And when people do give you their trust, that's why it's important to
Yeah.
be very careful with these biases, because when people have given you their trust, it's important to not mess it up by then finding dark ways to sort of like pull these things in. But then this actually,
Yeah.
speaking of trust, it then goes into scarcity bias, right? Because for you to trust a company enough to make you anticipate things or think that, oh my God, I have to get my hand on it, right? Something goes viral and becomes sold out. Scarcity basically relies on the fact that we attribute greater perceived value to a product that is rare or hard to get, right? And you can see this being used by a lot of e-commerce players. You see it in mobile apps when there are premium plans. You're getting bombarded with like subscription plans and saying, "Oh yeah, get this one." So there's actually one that I got recently that I was like, "Damn it!" when it went off. So this one is Flow. I don't know if you know Flow. It's the women's health app. I have been
Yeah, I
using
know it
Flow
definitely.
since I was 19. So I'm a long time from
Interesting.
day one, from when the app was junky. I've been using it with
Wow.
them, and so now to actually come back into the app, I took like a 1 year hiatus and then came back into the app for the first time. I was like, whoa, things have changed up completely. And I'm trying to access this app, and then they gave me this like, oh, this offer only comes once during your onboarding. Get lifetime price of X.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, absolutely. And I put my phone down just to go do something quickly. And I was going to come back and pay for it. And you know how your phone just refreshes, and I lost it. And the price is now back to the original. And I'm so mad. So if you work at Flow
Yeah.
and you're listening to this, please hook me up, please. Because I really want a
Yeah.
lifetime offer again. But then that's the whole point, right? Because to leverage
Yeah.
scarcity, you're thinking about limited time offers that create a sense of urgency that you need to act on this. But once again, can turn into the dark part where it's like, oh, consumerism, and then the dark side of capitalism where it's like, oh, we're just gonna hoard all these things and buy us because they're rare and you can't find them anywhere. And it's just that scarcity. That one swings more towards scarcity mentality. That's different from what we're talking about right now, right? And then when we think about like B2B products or BTC products, then you think about like wait lists. So when you're launching a new feature, when you're launching a new product or whatever it is, when you have like a wait list or a limited access, or things that people can only access by being invited by a friend. I think this happened during the pandemic with this app. Oh my God, it literally just slipped out of my head. Clubhouse. Yes, absolutely.
Clubhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how all of us were waiting to get the invitation from a friend and things like that. Yeah, absolutely, thumbs up. Well, you're waiting for this invitation from a friend and whatnot. You're just leveraging all that, and that triggers virality, which brings me to an
Hmm.
example, and I will let you take it from here, Emmanuel. Notion is one of the most impressive brands that I think has leveraged this so well. One is that virality, when you think about it in growth design, is not just about the general, it takes that concept of the general virality that we all know. But once again, when you're thinking about it within a growth loop, For example, it's that
Yeah.
user A tests this product, sees the value in it, and then brings in user B, and then it just continues to be like a multiplier effect. And I was thinking about when Notion launched their AI, and I got to be one of the early testers. Thank you, thank you. Um, but then yeah, I was an early adopter of like Notion AI. But then the point was, I remember where I was sitting at my desk when I got the access, and I basically made our company literally go get on the wait list so that like everyone could access Notion AI when it came. And that's the idea of virality sometimes, where it's like a single player within a company's context could then leverage, like if it becomes something that is accessible to the entire company. Look how many people, and for us at the time, we're a company of nearly 100 people, and one person then becomes the trigger for how potentially 100 people can get pulled into a product. And that's where virality comes into play with these things. So yeah, I'll let you take on scarcity bias.
Yeah, I feel one of the companies that I've seen that have used it a lot, and they use it so well, is Amazon. When you want to buy something on Amazon, and let's say you want to buy like a PlayStation, and you see this little trick, and they are telling you that 5 left, like 2, 3 left.
Yes.
Now, these are like biases that the designers are playing on so that they can get their customer or their user to take action, This also will lead to more conversion. So let's say like a design that shows the item, the product details, shows everything, but then there's this little tag that shows you like 2 items left, or like minutes, like a countdown to say, okay, 5 hours remaining for you to buy this item. You discover that when this kind of pages are subjected to testing, you see that the conversion rate obviously on that page that has this visual clue that 5 left, people will want
wanna
to
be
purchase.
totally.
Because they don't want to miss out.
Yeah.
I think there's also a bias of the fear of
The
missing
fear of
out.
missing
There's
out.
this
FOMO.
bias. Yeah, you understand. You don't want to miss out on something like this. And these are ways we can apply this in our product
Absolutely.
to actually improve conversion, whatsoever. You want to get user onboarded, there are these things that you could have, like maybe like 5 person recently joined, or like 5 slots left, something like that. Just like what you said, the use of the waiting list, which is also great. There is this one way that I think you mentioned, and I sort of wanted to talk about. It's about the use of this lifetime offer. There are some products. There was a product that sort of went viral on Twitter, I think sometimes earlier this year. It's a screen recording product, right?
Okay.
And one of the things, probably might be conscious or unconsciously, that the guy did was that on the landing page, there is this lifetime offer. You sort of have like, okay, it's a lifetime offer, but then it shows like, okay, numbers of people that are buying it, and it's reducing. And by doing that, a lot of users want to do that, and you are sending it to your friend that, hey, you need to get this tool.
Right.
Because the tool actually, the value of the product also is spot on, right? Which means that it's not as if it's just any kind of product.
Yeah. It sells itself, basically.
Exactly. So by doing that also, you are, as a customer or as a user, you're sharing that with your friend because you're feeling like, oh, I don't want you to miss out. Now triggers what you talked about, the virality thing, which means you're not just converting just one user, but also triggering that aspect of growth that makes your product go viral, and which is, one of the fun part of growth, see how just you leveraging on one psychological bias to trigger so many aspects of your growth funnel as a designer.
Absolutely. Yeah, which now brings us to our final one, which is the variable reward. And I think that you've got a very good example on this one, so I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so the variable reward is, as we humans, we like surprises. Like everybody likes surprise. Like when you kind of leverage on this bias, you are trying to make a user or a customer sort of be anxious to see what you have in stock for them. So one of the great examples that I have is the PlayStation game called FIFA. Like it's also on some other platform, right? But one of the way I really love how FIFA applies this principle is the fact that when you play games, right, you are allocated these packs. And in this pack, you don't know the kind of players that you need. These players, when you play games, you want some high-skilled 5-star, 4-star players that helps you to be better than your opponent, and you can, you could become better. Obviously, when you have a better team, you are better than your opponent. So FIFA allows you to play games, right? And they give you packs. Now you are playing game. The more you play this game, the more you get packs. And when okay, when I get this pack, I can get this particular player. That variable in the reward is not there. Like people don't like to see that, okay, they can actually predict what is there. So I feel the way FIFA really did it in such a way that the more I play game,
Yeah.
the more I get pack, and they've gotten a lot of users, a lot of people addicted to this model
Yeah.
of playing games to get packs, and because they don't know the player they will get. I don't know if I could get an Mbappe. I don't know if I could get an Haaland. So I keep playing.
Yeah.
So I'm increasing engagement. You know, and sometimes I
You're
even
their
went, I go ahead to buy.
You're their number one daily active user.
Yeah, sometimes you even go ahead to buy packs.
Yeah.
We buy these packs apart from playing it because I just want some surprise. I want to see new players, good players, and everything. And that's how you can apply it in products. You know, I think also in the B2B phase, you know, you want to give your users, probably you want them to take an action. You give them maybe like a discount code, but you could as well just vary the rewards. You don't want to just keep giving them one thing. You know, varying those rewards. Maybe user A comes in, gets this pack. You know, just varying those rewards is what we're talking about in terms of variable rewards. So I will allow you to come in there.
Yeah, no, totally. I think like a very wonderful case study that I came across recently through the growth designers community was just like Sweatcoin, which this one was led by Christina Volchek. And it was incredible listening to that case study. I'll find the link and then put it in. Just like rethinking how you do reward system and how they were able to achieve incredible growth. I think it was about 66 million new users by varying the in-app referrals, by varying the way people scratch digitally, and people fell in love with the digital scratch card, which then shows them different types of reward systems.
Rewards, yeah.
As opposed to your typical referral program that just says invite 2 friends, gets this, invite 3
gets 1. Yeah, it becomes boring.
It becomes very boring.
It becomes boring.
Done very quickly.
Exactly.
And if you take that variable reward system, it applies to other aspects of our lives, right? When
Definitely.
you're thinking about like how people get addicted to gambling in the first place, it's because of things like this, right? When you think about social media addiction, it's because you're constantly looking for that varied
new feeds.
Exactly.
News.
You're looking for varied information, and these things just keeps you engaged. It keeps you locked in, right? You get notifications. It's a classic example of that because they're unpredictable. You never know when you will receive them or what they're going to say, which is why I turn off every single notification imaginable across every app. I don't care what app it is. I don't get notifications on my phone until I actively go looking within it to see what.
So you are part of those users that give us challenge in terms of how channels can we reach our users. You turn up notifications. How does he want us to reach you? How does he want to tell you about a new product, a new feature? How else? Then we bombard your emails.
And I feel like I've also hacked that because I have a particular emails I use to subscribe to things so that everything goes in there. And I've created a system in there where it's like I have labels for everything. So it's like emails. I'm looking at people's email designs. I want to see how they're presenting information. That goes into it. So like I'm reading it goes into that label. I'm seeing how people do referrals. That's boring. That looks interesting. It goes into a label. And it's just like really structured way of living, you know. I need this brain to be not very like that. But anyway, so just thinking about that unpredictability is what keeps you hooked, is what keeps you logged on. And you find like loyalty programs, discount codes, free gifts, all of this just keeps people coming back to shop again. And so finally on this, it's just like variable rewards is a great way to increase engagement and motivation levels. As we've said, unpredictable rewards keeps people coming back for more, and when you use it correctly, you can achieve all of your goals regards like monetization, regards engagement, activation, while still keeping a very positive experiences for like users and customers. So this has been
definitely definitely. And just to mention that these biases, they're not just the 6, they're about 175 of them.
So more.
More. So as a designer, I would say you should go out there, read more about biases and see how they can apply in the product. Like these are real. Like we are just reasonably human beings, but then a lot of things that we meet every day, a lot of decisions we make are based on emotions, and these emotions stem from a lot of things around us that help us make this judgment. So I would say as designers, we should do well to really, really dive deep into different biases and see how we can apply it in product. And also, just to talk about resources, all the case studies we talked about, some of these things, we're going to add them to the show notes. And share across platforms and everything. So you can also check when and read more about some of those case studies. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, this has been a first one for our first conversation chat. Look at you not being alone in your podcast anymore.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's really exciting. These are conversations that I've always wanted to have, but it's always fun to have conversations with someone you can relate well to. I can't sit down and be having this kind of conversations with someone like Chitana or, these guys are veterans. But when we have people like us in the same career, it's easy for us to relate. It's relatable and we could share ideas and everything, just like what we are doing right now. And this is what we're going to be doing more in terms of talking about how you could actually apply good principles, strategies to your designs. And this will also give birth to so many resources that we're also going to be sharing. So I will allow Ini to take that.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, you've mentioned it that we're going to put those into show notes. And as much as possible, one thing we want to strive to do more of is not just going beyond the podcast. How can we take this information and make it digestible for you? So it could be like social media posts around cognitive biases. If you've got questions, please actively engage with us on those platforms so we can also include examples that come from your work that you've done as a designer, or things that you've observed around you as a designer, or just like if it's just learning, you can learn from these resources and would make them accessible via the website and other channels that we're trying to use to reach you. So yeah, this has been a fun one. So
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ini. And thanks so much to all our listeners out there. Thanks for listening to this episode. Do well to join us on the next episode of the Good Designer Podcast. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Bye.